Today I'll be summarizing a dramatic 2021 action MOV titled Old Henry. And spoiler alert, be warned. In 1906, Oklahoma, Brannigan is desperately trying to flee from three men wearing sheriff badges: Dugan, Stillwell, and their leader, Ketchum. No matter how fast he runs, Brannigan is shot and captured. Ketchum kicks him a few times, demanding he reveal the whereabouts of the man they're hunting, but Brannigan refuses. Angered, Ketchum ties him to a horse and drags him across the ground until Brannigan finally admits the man went east. Instead of releasing him, Ketchum shoots Brannigan dead. Meanwhile, Henry McCarty, an old farmer, and his teenage son Wyatt are working on their farm. Henry grew up in New York and traveled widely before settling in Oklahoma. Their life is peaceful, though often filled with arguments, usually about Wyatt wanting to leave and learn how to shoot, a notion Henry strictly forbids. That morning, they see a riderless horse pass by with a saddle stained in blood. Wyatt brings the horse back to the farm while Henry mounts up to investigate. He finds a man named Curry unconscious on the ground with a gunshot wound in his shoulder. Henry provides basic first aid using mud and a handkerchief, and then discovers a gun and a bag full of M1 in Curry's belongings, signaling trouble Henry doesn't want to get involved in. But as he begins to leave, Henry changes his mind and returns to take Curry and his belongings back to the farm. Curry is placed in the bed to recover. That night, Henry hides the gun and the bag of M1 in a secret compartment in the cupboard, unaware that Wyatt is spying on him through a crack in the door. The next morning, seeing that Curry's wound won't heal without removing the bullet, Henry decides to fetch a doctor from town. Before leaving, he ties Curry to the bed, but leaves a knife to cut the ropes on the table nearby. When Henry leaves, Wyatt sneaks into the cupboard, discovers the hidden compartment, and finds the bag of M1. He takes the gun out to practice shooting at an empty bottle. After missing several times, Wyatt finally hits the target. Inside the house, Curry hears the gunshots in his dreams. Recalling the night his house burned down, his family was killed, and he was ordered to bow his head and survive. Not long after, Wyatt returns the gun to the cupboard and takes the opportunity to open a box Henry had hidden for a long time. Inside, he finds another gun and several newspaper clippings about crimes linked to Henry. Meanwhile, on his way to town, Henry spots Ketchum and his men tracking Curry's trail. Stillwell, an expert tracker, notices that someone deliberately erased footprints, making the group realize Curry has an accomplice. Hearing a sound in the tall grass, they fire a few shots, but Henry escapes before being discovered. Back at the farm, Wyatt notices Curry's hand bindings have loosened, while his other hand is hidden under the blanket. When Wyatt lifts the blanket, the bindings are gone. Curry immediately jumps up, grabs the knife from the table, and threatens Wyatt, swearing he means no harm and only wants to retrieve his bag of M1. At that moment, Henry returns, kicks Curry away from Wyatt, and knocks him unconscious. They tie Curry to a chair and wake him up. Henry decides he can't go to town, so he uses a heated knife to remove the bullet from Curry's wound while interrogating him. Despite excruciating pain, Curry reveals he is a lawman and warns Henry and Wyatt to leave before it's too late. Just as Henry removes the bullet and prepares to ask more questions, Ketchum and his men appear outside the house. Henry grabs Curry's gun and realizes it has been fired, so he reloads it before stepping outside. Ketchum introduces himself as the sheriff, along with his deputies, explaining they are looking for Curry, a dangerous man impersonating a sheriff. Ketchum begins asking Henry about his past, paying particular attention when he hears Henry's last name, McCarty, the same as a notorious outlaw from years ago. Henry denies any connection and says he has never seen anyone like Curry, then orders Ketchum's group to leave. Before leaving, Ketchum reminds them to lock the door carefully. Henry returns to the house and slaps Wyatt for using the gun. Wyatt just wanted to know how it felt, as he was the only kid in the area not taught to shoot, having to learn on his own. Henry slaps Wyatt again, making him angry, and Wyatt insults him, saying Henry is useless and will be left alone when Wyatt is old enough to leave. Although heartbroken, Henry suppresses his emotions and returns to interrogate Curry. Curry insists he is the real sheriff, and Ketchum and his men are bank robbers who stole the badges from his deputies. After killing them, Curry got the M1 back but was injured in the process, causing him to faint and fall off his horse while fleeing. He only regained consciousness after being brought to the farm. Curry doesn't understand why Ketchum didn't shoot Henry, but he's sure Ketchum's group will return. Meanwhile, Ketchum and his men discuss their next plan. They don't believe Henry and wonder why he would help a stranger. Dugan doesn't understand why they didn't shoot Henry when they had the advantage of 3 against 1, but Ketchum explains that something strange is going on. He doesn't think Henry did this for money, and Henry doesn't carry a gun like a farmer. They need to gather more information, so Dugan will watch the farm, while Ketchum and Stillwell go to rent guns and visit Al. As night falls, Henry tells Wyatt to go inside before finishing the work on the farm, as it's too dangerous to be outside too late. Later, Henry personally feeds Curry a bowl of soup, causing Curry to complain because he is still tied up. And Henry wants to test whether he can trust Curry. Henry asks Curry about his past, and Curry talks about the people he used to work and live with, names Henry recognizes from his own travels. Curry also apologizes for attacking Wyatt, explaining that he was scared and confused when he woke up in an unfamiliar place. Although Curry feels that Henry's face is familiar, Henry denies ever having met him before. Henry decides to untie one of Curry's hands, then leaves the gun on the table and goes to pour more water. This is a test to see if Curry will grab the gun, but he doesn't do that. Instead, Curry continues to talk about his childhood, including the time he witnessed Billy, a child who was shot. It was Billy's voice that Curry had heard in his dream earlier. After hearing the stories and seeing that Curry didn't grab the gun, Henry finally decides to trust him, unties his other hand, gives him back the gun, and tells him to leave the house before the criminals return. However, the conversation doesn't last long, as suddenly Dugan starts shooting at them through the window. Curry shoots back, and Wyatt comes to see what's going on, getting grazed by a bullet. Still in pain from his wound, Curry faints, and Henry takes his gun. As Dugan sneaks under the house, shooting through the floor whenever Henry M-ovs, Henry decides to make a plan. He gives the gun to Wyatt with some shooting instructions, then throws a book on the floor to fool Dugan into shooting in that direction while he runs in the opposite way. After getting the rifle, Henry goes outside and starts shooting under the house until Dugan is forced to run out and is shot in the leg. Henry rushes toward him, trying to force Dugan to give up information, but Dugan refuses, forcing Henry to kill him to erase the evidence. He throws Dugan's body to the pigs. After noticing a burn mark on Dugan's skin, Henry tends to Wyatt's wound while avoiding his son's questions about his past. Wyatt feels his father doesn't respect him, and Henry realizes he can't expect respect from his son. After checking Curry's condition, who is still dreaming about the fire, Henry takes the gun outside, waiting for the worst to come the next morning. Al goes bird hunting, easily gets caught, and leaves a trail for others to follow. They want to know more about Henry, but Al refuses to answer. When trying to defend himself, he gets knocked unconscious. Back at the farm, Henry and Wyatt help Curry get dressed to leave, even though Curry can barely walk, let alone ride a horse. He told them to leave while he stayed behind to settle things. Wyatt wanted to stay to protect the house, but Henry agreed with Curry and prepared for his son to leave. Unfortunately, when they went outside, a nasty surprise was waiting for them. Ketchum and Stillwell returned with a group of mercenaries. Father and son had to turn back while Ketchum offered a deal. If they handed over Curry, he would let them go without harm. Since Henry refused, Ketchum pushed the situation further and revealed that they had captured Al, who was injured and bleeding. Henry grabbed a gun, handed Wyatt a gun, told him to stay inside, stay away from the windows, and only shoot if necessary. Though Curry seemed happy to be handed over to Ketchum, Henry went outside to face him. Ketchum admitted he wasn't a police officer and was very curious about who Henry truly was. He offered to trade Al for Curry, but Henry refused. Since neither side was willing to reveal their secrets, Ketchum immediately shot Al dead. This made Wyatt rush outside and start shooting back, but Henry pulled him inside while the gang retaliated, shooting Curry in the leg as he neared the window. After scolding Wyatt for his reckless actions, Henry told him to keep his head down. Listening to these words, Curry realized that Henry was actually Billy, the person he thought had died in the fire but had actually escaped. Henry ignored Curry and focused on retrieving the gun and old ammo pouch before stepping outside to start shooting. After just a few words and some accurate shots, Henry took down several gang members and returned inside, making a hole in the window for Curry to shoot at a few more. The remaining men began to surround the house. Henry grabbed a knife, snuck behind the house, and silently stabbed 2 of the criminals. Then he hid under the house and shot down the third. When he came outside, he faced Stillwell, who also pulled out a knife to attack, but Henry quickly took him down before he could react. Only Ketchum was left, hiding behind the pig pen. He shot Henry in the shoulder, forcing him to run into the forest to lure Ketchum to chase him. The two hid behind trees, shooting at each other, but Henry was too skilled, causing Ketchum to be hit in the leg and shoulder. Henry moved closer, and Ketchum managed to fire one last shot before Henry finished him off. Though the wound wasn't severe, when Henry returned to the farm, he went to Curry to help him. When he removed Curry's shirt to check the wound, Henry discovered something surprising. Curry showed signs of gang affiliation similar to Dugan. Curry immediately shot Henry for knowing the truth. In fact, Curry wasn't lying. He admitted that he had been a sheriff, but a corrupt one. He and his deputies had worked with Ketchum, but when he heard that Ketchum planned to kill them in their last mission, Curry tried to escape, and that was how everything started. Henry was in pain, but not dead, and Curry wanted to be the one to finish off Billy the Kid. However, before he could shoot, Wyatt arrived and killed Curry. Wyatt wanted to find a doctor for his father, but Henry explained it was too late. He wanted to tell his son a final word. When Wyatt goes outside, he will hear many stories about Billy the Kid, but only half of them are true. Henry admitted he wasn't a good man and didn't believe in redemption. All this time, he had only sought comfort in raising a good child. Henry didn't think he had a place in this new world, but he was sure Wyatt did. After arning his father, Wyatt buried Henry next to his mother. When ready, he packed his things and left the farm on horseback, beginning the journey he had always desired. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the latest videos like this one. Thank you for watching.